If you're not using Foundry, you better think about what your position in the company is, because
if you're not using Foundry, your business is a piece of shit. Alright, so since investor calls are probably one of the most boring things when it comes to investing, I did you guys a favor and I watched all of it, so you don't have to. So for the sake of your attention span and time, I'm just going to go over the key highlights of Palantir's earnings with none of the filler so that you're not bored to tears with an hour-long video. All I ask is that you subscribe and hit the notification bell if you really appreciate these kinds of videos. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, guys. Let's see if we can get to 1,000 before the year ends. So today, we're going to go over Palantir's Q3 earnings report. And look, I get it that earnings aren't the most exciting thing in the world to talk about. However, as any shareholder of Palantir, I think it's important to understand what's going on with their finances. Okay, first, their total revenue grew 36% year over year to $392 million. And while some people may have been disappointed that this number wasn't 400 million, you know what I say? Who f***ing cares? One thing I want to stress in this video, and what you need to understand about Palantir, is that this is a very long play. Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, has said plenty of times that Palantir isn't worried about the short term. They are a business focused on long-term growth. So even though revenue of 392 million might be a slight disappointment for some, it still beat guidance, and it demonstrates clear growth for Palantir. Alright, let's keep going. Next on the list is probably the most impressive thing. They added 34 new customers in Q3, and to put this in perspective, this number contributes to Palantir adding double the number of commercial customers since the beginning of the year. And in fact, this means that the United States commercial revenue grew 103% year over year. I don't know about you guys, but I'm calling that a clear win. And moving along, let's look at their cash flow, which simply just refers to the amount of money that's moving in and out of a company. So positive cash flow just indicates that a company has more money moving into it than out of it, which of course is what we want to see. And no surprise here, Palantir's adjusted free cash flow is 119 million, which represents a 30% margin. Next, Palantir was able to close 54 deals of $1 million or more, and in conjunction, their total deal value grew by 50% year over year to $3.6 billion. And on top of this, their total customer deal value grew by 101% year over year to $2.2 billion. Alright guys, I'm almost done with all the numbers here, and then I'm going to get into an interesting portion of the earnings call that happened towards the end. So lastly, let's look at how Palantir has grown from Q1 all the way to Q3. Commercial customer count increased 135%, cash flow from operations grew by 240 million, which represented a 22% margin, and adjusted free cash flow grew to 320 million, which represented a 29% margin year. So of all these numbers, I would say that the one that is absolutely the most impressive is the US commercial revenue growth of 103%. And the reason that I say this is because a majority of Palantir's revenue comes from United States organizations. So I see this as the strongest win out of everything mentioned in the presentation. Now, in terms of the actual presentation itself, I'd say it was very lackluster, to be honest. Essentially, the presenter sounded like a huge dork. I think it would have been nice to have a different presenter that had some more human qualities, that didn't sound like an overly joyful robot speaking. But hey, that's just me. Like a phony car salesman trying to give you a pitch on a car you didn't actually want to buy. But I digress. Essentially, aside from the actual numbers, the presentation just gave an overview of things that many people who follow Palantir already know. They touched on how they want to become the US government's central operating system, and then moved into some of the other accomplishments that they've made and the direction that Palantir is moving, including their continued work in the industrial defense base, carbon and emissions management, meta constellation, and the launch of their crypto offering for fintech companies. So all that's fine and good, but you might be thinking, okay, earnings were good, not amazing by any means, but good. Why did the stock tank? Well, where their earnings livestream really took a nosedive was at the end. where that joke of a presenter was tasked with answering questions from shareholders. I won't go over all the questions, as I think it'll just take up too much time, but I'd like to go over a few that stood out to me. So I'm gonna play 3 questions, and all I ask is that you listen to the gist of how the presenter answers these questions.
Does Palantir view any other AI companies as competitors? If so, what makes Palantir's platform a better choice?
Our competition is not any other company. It's really, the competition is our customer, specifically our customer's IT department and their desire to build their own solution. And you know what? It's not even really their fault. There's an army of consultants and cloud providers who peddle completely bogus DIY architectures that are never going to work.
Whoa, maybe the real competitors were the customers we made along the way. I mean, I get what Palantir is trying to say. They're the best in their class with no competition. But this has got to be the cheesiest answer I've ever heard in a professional earnings call.
Are you planning to invest in any cryptocurrency?
Thanks, Alex and Jeff. We are super excited about Foundry for Crypto. We see a unique fit with fast-growing crypto companies that need industrialized compliance solutions. These are highly technical buyers, and they're highly motivated disruptors. We are leveraging our deep anti-money laundering and know your customer expertise that we developed over years, helping governments find compliance issues with the world's largest banks and helping those banks in turn respond and harden their compliance programs. Some of the largest AML investigations in the world.
Great, thanks, Sham. Do you intend to focus on profitability in the near term, or are you still focused on expansion?
Thanks, Avi. As you see in our results, we're delivering strong growth with strong cash flow. We expect revenue growth of 40% for the full year, expecting our second year in a row of 40% or higher revenue growth. We've raised our adjusted free cash flow guide to an excess of $400 million for the year, the second straight quarter raising our guidance, and it implies an over $670 million year-over-year improvement.
You see what I mean? Just empty answers. These are all extremely simple questions to answer, and yet they literally all sounded like weird scripted answers that were trying to dodge the actual question. I'm just gonna say it. It was really cringe. So overall, I'd say this last portion of the call just made the whole thing very forced and not transparent at all, which was reflected in the huge drop in stock price on November 9th. So my final thoughts on the presentation was that it was pretty mediocre and the actual numbers were good. Honestly though, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Of course, this doesn't change my outlook on Palantir. I just hope that next time they'll actually get a better speaker. But yeah, those are my honest thoughts at the moment. Thanks to those of you who made it to the end, and I'll catch you next time.